Coming up on this episode of OutLook TV.
Elephant in the Room with Sister Fancy Pants.
Wiggle 25 from Montreal. And much, much more. Hello and welcome to OutLook TV. I'm Rebecca Wyman.
And I'm Robert Mackay. And you're watching the Queer Magazine news show that brings you the stories that matter the most from coast to coast, outside and 6 feet apart.
So we're going to start it off in Montreal with Wiggle 25.
That's the 25th anniversary of this wonderful show that is nothing but fascinators, headdresses, and drag. Let's see what they've brought to the table.
The Museum of Fine Arts of Montreal and the Never Apart Center have teamed up to create one fashionably exciting float for Montreal Pride inspired by the Wiggle Festival and by the Thierry Mugler exhibition. We're talking today with the icon himself, Michael Venus, to talk about the concept behind his float.
At the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts, they have the Thierry Mugler retrospective exhibit. And for me, it's genius because Mugler really was one of those inspiring designers from the early 90s that really affected us in the House of Venus, and one of the reasons we started Wiggle. So we actually did the very first show at the museum during the Thierry Mugler exhibition. And that was like a major full circle dream come true. The final thing that we did to celebrate 25 years of Wiggle was at the Fierté Parade. The Museum of Fine Arts loved what we did so much with Wiggle that they asked us to be a part of it with the parade. So we had almost 50 people dressed up in wigs and headpieces and costumes lead the way, including Mina Mercury, who is a drag superstar from Vancouver, and she was in the very first Wiggle in Vancouver in 1997, I think it was. So that was super awesome, and it was like celebrating Mugler as well as Wiggle and Never Apart. So Wiggle started way back when in the very early days of the House of Venus. I think we were a year or so old, and we were doing different events in Windsor and Detroit and wanted to do something that was an annual thing. And we were working with the different arts organizations in Windsor and Detroit and came up with Wiggle, where artists could create these wearable art pieces, and we would auction them off for charity, and it was presented in a runway fashion mixed with like burlesque, live singing, dance, drama, drag, genderfuck, all of this stuff in 1994. And we were heavily influenced, obviously, by designers like Mugler and Thierry Mugler, but what was going on in New York's club scene was super, awe-inspiring to us. The ball scene, the drag scene and wig stock, things like that. And we were going to New York a lot, so it was just kind of like, let's bring some of this creative energy to Windsor, Ontario, the armpit of Canada, because there really isn't that kind of thing. So that's what we did, and it just kept kind of growing and growing with extensions and weaves and add-ons, and then it hit 25, and I'm like, wow.
Make sure you follow the House of Venus to know when the Wiggle Festival documentary will come out. For OutLook TV, this is Ollie in Montreal.
We're going to take a trip over to Calgary now, but not just to Calgary. We're also going to go back in time to when Cleve Jones came to visit.
The founder of the AIDS Quilt is wrapping us up in community and warmth. Let's see what he had to say on his panel out in Calgary.
A big part of it was Harvey's Camera Store. It was I don't think he ever made any money on it, but it was a place where young people like myself could go and get involved in politics. So I saved my money and I bought me a camera, and I made my first film, and Scott and Harvey and a few others had decided they were going to have a film festival in the back of the camera store, a sheet on the back wall, And so I showed Harvey this little Super 8 film I'd made, and, well, he just said, "Girl, you have no talent at all. You need to change your major." And I was just, heartbroken. But he said, if you'll change to political science and go to San Francisco State, when I get elected, you can come and work with me at City Hall. We worked on everything from the first gay rights ordinance to getting stop signs put in at dangerous intersections. The 24 Divisadero bus pulled up, and a woman yelled at me out the window, "Cleve, they shot the mayor." And I couldn't imagine who would want to shoot Mayor Moscone. He was just the most charismatic guy. he and Harvey sort of invented the progressive coalition that brought trade unionists and environmentalists and feminists and the people we now call LGBTQ. I don't know how many of you have been in San Francisco City Hall. It's a very beautiful building and with a grand staircase, and Harvey always said, don't take the elevator, you go up that staircase, and I ran up the staircase and the opposite side of the building from the mayor's office, and I saw all the police over by the mayor, and I went to the Board of Supervisors, and I had a key to the private chambers, and I let myself in. I remember running down the hallway yelling, Harvey, Harvey, where are you? And then turning the corner and seeing his feet. And I knew it was Harvey because he only had one pair of dress shoes, a pair of secondhand wingtips. And I remember coming around the corner and looking down, and I'd never seen a dead person before. I'd never seen close up what bullets do. And all I remember thinking is, it's over. It's just over. But I think I understood clearly from that moment on that there was something I was supposed to do to the best of my ability. With all my flaws, I was going to do what I could to make sure that Harvey Milk and George Moscone were remembered. Fewer and fewer people were coming each year to the marches, and that year, 1985, I'm walking up and down Castro Street with my staple gun, putting up posters and talking to people in the bars and saying, hey, we're going to remember Harvey Milk and George Moscone. And then I looked at the headline of the newspaper in the rack on the corner, and it said 1,000 dead. 1,000 people had died in San Francisco already. By the fall of 1985, almost everyone I knew was dead or dying or home caring for someone who was dying. It went through my neighborhood like an avalanche, and it took just about everybody I loved. So a few nights later, as people began to gather for the annual candlelight tribute, I had Harvey's old bullhorn, and I had stacks of poster board that my friend Paul brought. I think he stole them. And with magic markers, and I talked to the crowd and I said, we're remembering Harvey Milk and George Moscone tonight, but we were also remembering our friends and our lovers and our neighbors who have died. And at first people were reluctant to write their names, and we just covered the whole front gray stone facade of the federal building with these names. And it was a cold night, typical late fall San Francisco drizzle, fog. There was no music, no speeches, no chanting, just thousands and thousands of people standing in the rain and reading the names on the wall and whispering to each other, I went to school with him. We're from the same hometown. And I got to the edge of the crowd and I looked over the crowd at that patchwork of names on the wall, and I thought, oh, it looks like some kind of crazy quilt. What do you think of when you say the word quilt? I think of my grandma, my great-grandma back in Bee Ridge, Indiana, and the quilts they made out of my great-grandpa's pajamas. It's on my bed at home right now. And it was such a warm, comforting, middle-class, middle American, traditional family values sort of symbol. I believe in traditional family values. I want them to apply to me, and my family, and yours. And that was the idea. And I closed my eyes and I opened them, and I could see the National Mall in Washington, D.C. just covered from the Capitol to the Washington Monument with fabric. And that was the idea.
We're going to have to take a little break now.
I'm going to go to anyone who has a pair of scissors on their hands because I'm sporting COVID chic hair right now.
I don't know what you're talking about. Mine's glorious.
No.
Welcome back. You're watching Outlook TV.
In this next segment, we are going to bring you an army of lovers. Are you ready for an army, Rebecca?
Oh, I am. 70s and 80s lesbian activists? Bring them on.
Mm-hmm. And not just any history, but an oral history. And if there's one thing we love, it's oral history.
We're at the Vancouver City Archives to see the exhibition, An Army of Lovers. We're going to interview some of the participants and look at the panels.
This exhibition is based on work I did with students at Simon Fraser University last fall. And it was very much because I had in mind this big celebration of the 1969 legislation change And, you know, I'm a feminist. I've been around the block, and I thought, oh, next year is the Royal Commission on the Status of Women anniversary. Are they going to be making such a big deal out of that? How do we draw more attention to women's issues, which are still very much with us today? So for me personally, it was really important that we include Indigenous women, their experiences. One of my concerns as a lesbian historian is how the term lesbian is really coded white and it's very white dominant. It was not exclusively white. I think 10 years ago you might have seen something that was like that.
Well, I moved to Vancouver when I was in my mid-20s, and I was like many people, I was washing up on the shores of Vancouver because I'd burned my bridges back east. And I had enough of sense to know that I wanted to be with the women. And with the women meant be with the lesbians and be with the feminists. So I had the good fortune of finding myself a good old-fashioned lesbian communal household where the women there were involved in all sorts of fabulous activities in Vancouver, including a feminist print shop called Press Gang.
I was just speaking in Abu Dhabi at the World Urban Forum and in working in Iraq, and was able to speak out and know that the Canadian government was going to be there for me, which is hugely important because in Abu Dhabi it's a crime punishable by death. The alt-right is on the move, and we need to come back together again and stay where we stand and keep pushing forward, because we could easily go backwards.
2 generations ago, particularly say 2 generations ago, which is the age of, for me anyway, of some of the university students, don't have a clue. You know, the history isn't there. It's hard to find about what went on, what women were doing to make life easier for them today. So yeah, I think that's very important.
We've progressed a lot in terms of sexuality and being okay with being who we are, you know, from the 70s till now. And I think it's important for young people to recognize the fight and what has actually happened to get to where we are today.
For OutLook TV, this is Gary Wolfader from the Army of Lovers exhibition.
For our next story, let's take it universal. The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence go round the world.
The queer community is connecting to a whole new port, the internet, in order to create a global event for you to view at home.
Oh, hi, viewers. We're here with our very own Sister Fancy Pants in Vancouver, coming to you virtually. Sister Fancy Pants is going to tell us all about her virtual global sisterhood program she's putting together. And we've got a few of the other sisters from around the world, virtually, that are going to be in the show. So let's get on with it and find out what it's all about.
Good morning, sisters. It's time to go to work.
Good morning, Charlie. The Virtual Global Sisterhood Show is basically a show that brings all sisters from all around the world together, and we are going to send one huge message of joy to our communities. The sisters are in over 4 continents and 70 cities. This is about bringing all those individuals together and sending out a big global message saying that as sisters right now, we cannot be in physical spaces the way we used to be, but we haven't gone anywhere. We're still here fighting for you. We're still here speaking on your behalf and also speaking to you.
There are islands of salvation. There is shelter from the storm.
Being a nun since 1979, I was part of the original group when it formed, and was called to service in this particular way. Here we are 41 years later and going global.
We have a lot of deaf people in the community of Dallas. I know very little sign language. I try to communicate as best as possible because most of the sisters don't know how to communicate with deaf people. So I go out to the community. A lot of deaf people see my hearing aid in my ear. So they start communicating me in sign language. So I told them to finger spell slowly so we can communicate better for each other, and it worked.
Let's bring light into those dark streets. We have something we call Sister Fairy Dust. It's been percolating for 40 years like a really good and strong cup of coffee. And what we do is we throw that as a blessing and anointing on the world. And so online, what we're going to do as part of the Sister Show, and we're going to bind it all up together with some fabulous poofing glitter out there virtually that's going to get into everybody's software system and make sure that they're all sparkling and ready to come back to life.
My name is Sister Mona Key.
I'm Sister So Am I Deluxe.
I am Sister Amora Quality.
Hello, I'm Sister Leah from Germany.
I'm Sister Teen Laquifa.
Stay strong, stay healthy, stay happy, and we love you.
This has been John Crossan coming to you virtually from the Vancouver Alps for OutLook TV.
It's time for us to take another little break now.
I'm feeling a little saucy and I'm going to start breaking some rules. Ready, Rebecca?
Ah!
Ready?
Ah!
Ready for this?
Ah!
I'm coming at you.
Ah!
6 feet, baby.
Welcome back. You're watching OutLook TV.
Hey, Rebecca,
Yes,
guess what
Robert?
the large thing in the room is with a trunk?
I think I'm too frightened to take any guesses on that one.
That's probably for the best. I'm talking about the elephant in the room.
Oh, the elephant in the room, art.
Mm-hmm. Sister Fancy Pants was involved, and we got the exclusive.
Hello. An elephant in the room. What does that mean to you? It could mean a lot of things, but we're going to talk to Ollie Silva, the person who created the online event.
An Elephant in the Room is an art show that is based on photography that I've done with Rory McLeod, an artist from Vancouver. And what I did is to present photography to an audience during COVID-19. I curated 10 artists to do a performance of what they thought my art show represented. An Elephant in the Room is a project that I've done a little while ago, but I've never presented to the public because it was meant to be premiered as a play in Montreal with Ensemble Theatre Company. So because of COVID, I thought that I would kind of like give a sneak peek of what a project is about. So I gathered 10 artists to do a performance on the photography, because the actual end project that I'm going to present in Montreal will be a live theatrical performance.
Cause I'm not sure if I can bleed no more out here on the dance floor.
And basically throughout the show, I've had musicians such as Aidan McHugh, Matthew Presidente, performing music that was inspired by an element of the pictures.
And if you're standing in the way of love, you better.
I've had drag performances from Mina Mercury, Alter. I also had Johnny Trin doing a beautiful spoken word piece.
I have so much to say. I worry about you.
And I also had Dennis Drapeau talking about spirituality, actually, because I feel this show is about traumas, it's about things that we're feeling. I felt it was important to bring somebody to kind of like wrap everything up.
Or you're starting to feel a break in your anxiety or feelings of overwhelm.
I'm also working on a project called Making Waves, and now they ask basically Vancouver Biennale to do a Vancouver edition of this project. So they've asked me and two-spirit artist Cease Weiss to join in as lead artist.
Down, 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 down on your love. Down, 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 down on your love.
Thank you for helping us to explore our elephant in the room. This is Sister Fancy Pants, Ms. Gay Vancouver 40 for OutLook TV.
Next up, we have a piece locally produced in Kelowna that Shaw has generously let us air.
Ooh, we get to take a little look at their spotlight, which includes Craven Moorehead, the Drag King. Sounds like the title of a villain from a Harry Potter movie, don't you think?
Yes, definitely.
Well, accentio roli that clip. Did it work? Is that magic? No, it's not magic.
I like to usually do an open shirt kind of a look.
so I will duct tape everything back. My drag persona's name is Craven Moorehead. I didn't actually come up with the name Craven Moorehead, my husband did. I was going through a couple different names, but the more I thought about it, I was like, no, Craven Moorehead sounds funny, and I like it. I would call myself a drag king. A drag king is a woman that dresses up like a man and gets on stage and performs.
I want to look like a hot man, so I'm drawing on some fake abs.
Craven is a bit of a chameleon. I usually like to dress him up like either very rock and roll, very glam rock, or very goth. But there's other times where I'll dress him up like a cheesy 1970s used car salesman. The drag world started for me about 6 years ago. I really enjoyed the earlier years. It was a lot of fun. I don't think I was nearly as polished as some of my performances and my look nowadays, but none of us really were. We could just be us and just be dorks.
So why do you want to dress up like a man?
Good question. Why do I want to dress up like a man? I don't know. I started dressing up like a man mostly just because I wanted to connect more with my friends that were dressing in drag already. And they were putting on shows, and I found them entertaining, and I wanted to be a part of that fun, entertaining atmosphere. If I'm honest, I don't really like the performing part. I get very scared and very nervous being on stage. I like the creating the looks, and I like the camaraderie with my friends and family in the drag community. There's not a lot of drag kings in this town. I think I can name less than 10 that I know of. Craven compared to Laura, Craven is definitely a lot more brash, a lot more forward, vulgar. He likes to try to impress the ladies. Laura has no interest in the ladies, but Craven will try to impress them. So I'm done. I'm all dressed. I am Craven Moorehead now. I've made a mess of my room doing it, but we're ready to go out.
Make some noise, get your money ready for Craven Moorehead!
I think the audience either loves me or is just indifferent, whether it's disgust or laughter or applause. I don't think anybody really hates me. I hope nobody hates me. I like the drag life. I like it a lot. Even if I'm not performing or doing something myself, I end up helping out with my friends, either helping them out get changed in the background. Like, even if I was to stop performing, I would still be involved in the drag scene somehow, yeah. The advice that I have for new drag kings is don't be afraid to reach out either like online or in your own community and find other kings or even other queens and just get advice on how you might, put together a look or put together a number.
Oh, people should definitely go to a drag show. They are entertaining. They feature all walks of life. It's just a good time, and I think that's the main point of most of our shows, is to have a good time.
That is all the time we have for this COVID edition of Outlook TV, but we'll be back distantly again soon.
And in the meantime, you can just keep using the same thing you're probably using right now, the internet, to connect with us on Twitter and Facebook and Grindr and Squirt or whatever they put out there.
We're not on Grindr or Squirt. No? Quit telling people we are.
Okay. Connect with us on the internet. Shoot us an email to volunteer with us. We need somebody across Canada.
Yes, please, especially in these days. We need to be all together, slightly apart.
6 feet to be precise.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Rebecca Wyman.
And I'm Robert Mackay.
Stay safe, Canada.